Welcome to Making Sense of the Madness. We got a great show lined up for you today. First, we've got Mike McCormick, former White House stenographer spanning many administrations. He's got a new book, An Almost Insurmountable Evil, How Obama's Deep State Defied the Catholic Church and Executed the Wuhan Plandemic. That's just a piece of what we're going to get into. And then we've also got Josh Hewlett coming in to talk about nitric oxide and its benefits. So much more. Unmissable episode. Buckle up and get ready to make sense of the madness. And we are now joined by Mike McCormick. Now, Mike, I've had you on a couple times. I believe this is your second book right now, or you wrote a couple before, but this is your second book. I know that we've had you on the broadcast on. For those, actually, one of the first questions I asked you about was the Bush administration and Dick Cheney in particular, and working amongst the neocons. I mean, that's really as far back as it goes. When we were off air, just kind of talking, you have incredible kind of breaking news that I think is extremely relevant to this day and to this administration that is currently not only on the declassification train, but if you believe Kurt Weldon, a former congressman, they're going to start getting into the 9/11 stuff as well.
Well, here we are.
Yes,
We're
exactly.
Right
So I'm just going to let you go. Let everybody know, again, just a little bit about your background as a stenographer, the administrations you were a part of, and then break this news.
So I was a White House stenographer from 2002 through 2018, a span of about 16 years. Worked for Bush and Cheney, worked for Obama and Biden, a lot of time with Biden. That's why I wrote the book, The Case to Impeach and Imprison Joe Biden, over that shoulder. And then I worked 1 year with Trump. And then I left that administration. Cancel culture actually is what it was. They didn't like me. I liked Trump, and they didn't like Trump. They were working for him. They didn't like him. So over the course of the years, my job took me overseas with every vice president and president. And I just sort of shrugged it off. But one of the reasons why I wrote the books is because I would be in the presence of the press. I was a press office stenographer. So I listened whenever the president or the vice president spoke to the press. I would be there with a recorder, whether it was overseas or in the Oval Office, recording it, making a transcript so that the words of the president or vice president were explicit and clear by me as a contractor, not by the White House version versus the media version. This was a contract. It was a court reporting function, really. So I was moving around locations, and I found some old documents of a trip I took with Dick Cheney in 2005 to Pakistan. The trip was kind of interesting. We left under secret conditions, Washington, flew to Iraq, spent a day in Iraq. Then we went to Afghanistan, spent a day in Afghanistan. And then we went to Pakistan. The third leg of the trip was Pakistan. And the center location for each of those sort of legs in and out of these hot zones was Oman, on the Gulf of Oman. So while I'm clearing out these books, here's a picture of me with Cheney. So this is a trip I took with Dick Cheney in 2007. This was taken in Pakistan. So this is what they call a departure photo. I actually left the White House for a little bit of time from 2007 to 2010. Tried another job, didn't work out, went back to the White House, and that's when I started working with Biden. So this is me standing there with Cheney. We flew into Pakistan in a C-17 and wound up actually that night going to Bagram Air Base. We got stuck there. There was a bombing the next morning at the gate. People died, and we had to take a hurried take the plane out of there. He went to Kabul. Despite the bombing, he went to Kabul, did a meeting with the president of Afghanistan, and then we flew out of there and lickety split got home, cut the trip short. Well, that was 2007. in 2005, I went to Pakistan and I found a bunch of documents that were put out by USAID. And here's the package of documents. So this was, there was an October earthquake in Pakistan. And what USAID did is they set up kind of an earthquake relief zone. And so Cheney, here we go. This is the USAID cover page of their document. There you go. So USAID, Islamabad is down in there, around there. So Islamabad was the capital. In this 2005 trip, so this is the third day. We've gone to Baghdad. We've gone in and out of Afghanistan, a stop in Bagram and back to Oman. We fly into Pakistan. And Cheney goes first to the palace of Musharraf, was the dictator. He was kind of a Pakistan dictator, but he was friendly with the U.S. So they backed him up. He backed them up. And they were supposedly looking for Osama bin Laden. You know, there was this big, where's Osama bin Laden? Well, we then later, after we meet with Musharraf, we go back to this airfield, and we got on 1970 era helicopters from the U.S. Army. They were like Vietnam War leftovers. They showed us the bullet holes of the Vietnam War left in them. We get on these helicopters and we go flying up this river valley. And this is the map of the river valley that we flew up to. I'm going to point out that we flew over this area right here is Abbottabad. That's Abbottabad, Pakistan. 5 years later, that's where Osama bin Laden was killed. But Dick Cheney, in December of 2005, took a helo flight right over the top of where Osama bin Laden was later killed. So I saw this and I started putting this together in my Substack. A couple of weeks ago, I put out a Substack. My Substack is Midnight in a Laptop of Good and Evil. So I started digging into this. And I went on Luxol, which is a deep dive search engine, and I put in Cheney, Abbottabad, Osama bin Laden. And I came up with a website that was put out by the CIA, kind of talking about how Osama bin Laden was killed. It was sort of their historical legacy version of the raid that killed Osama bin Laden. Well, on this website, they had surveillance photos of the exact site where Osama bin Laden was building his compound where he was later killed. So one photo was from 2004 and one photo was from 2005. So they were surveilling where Osama bin Laden wound up getting killed for years. And Dick Cheney flew a helicopter right over the top of it in 2005. Dick Cheney doesn't just go flying helicopters around in the countryside in Pakistan for no good reason. So I looked a little deeper. On the trip, there was media. Fox News had James Rosen was with Fox News then. He was on the trip. Terry Moran was on the trip with ABC News. I don't know if he went with us to Pakistan. But one reporter who did go with us to Pakistan was Dana Bash with CNN. Dana Bash at the time was married to a guy named Jeremy Bash. Jeremy Bash has since become one of the 51 intelligence community operatives who had their clearance revoked because he signed that letter that said, yeah, the Hunter Biden laptop is Russian disinformation. So he's got his clearance revoked. In 2011, when Osama bin Laden was killed in Abbottabad, in May 2011 was when the raid took place. Jeremy Bash was the chief of staff of the CIA. He worked directly beneath CIA Director Leon Panetta. So Jeremy Bash was very close in with the eventual capture of and killing of Osama bin Laden. Well, Dana Bash is his wife in 2005. They're married. They get divorced in 2007. So she goes on this trip, excuse me, and she winds up doing an interview with Cheney at this MASH. There was the part of the earthquake relief we were touring was a mobile Army surgical hospital MASH unit up in the hills. And so she did an interview with Cheney, and I did the recording of the interview, and I was able to dig up the transcript of that recording. In that recording, she coyly asks him, there is information that Osama bin Laden is in Pakistan. Can you talk about that? And Cheney says, Dana, I can't answer that question. He didn't say yes, and he didn't say no. He said, I can't answer that question. That's him saying, and I worked with Cheney as his stenographer. I listened to him talk to people a lot. One time I remember him saying to a reporter, he goes, I can tell you three things when I'm answering your questions of the media. And he says this as someone who was a White House chief of staff at the age of 33 and, for President Ford. So he's an old Washington hand. He goes, I can tell you an affirmative answer. I can tell you I don't know. Or I can tell you, he can say, I can answer your question. I can tell you I don't know the answer to the question. Or I can tell you I can't tell you. He didn't say yes and he didn't say no. He said, I can't tell you. So this to me is an indication that Dana Bash was on this trip. CNN was informed, and they kind of trotted this out in front of the American public. Oh, we're looking for Osama bin Laden. He could be in Pakistan. We have to continue this, forever war in Afghanistan to find where Osama bin Laden was. They had him on ice the whole time. They knew where he was. That's what I believe. And I think that needs to be investigated.
So let me just back up just about everything you're saying from the initial Pakistani involvement in 9/11. First of all, in January of 2002, Dan Rather and CBS News do a report where they go to a Pakistani hospital. They interview much of the staff there, if you haven't seen it, Mike, all of them covered up. And they talk about how they were treating Osama bin Laden on September 10th, the evening before the attacks, and he was being protected by the Pakistani military. Again, this is on the record. This is, just several months after the attack. That's nothing compared to the fact that you have the head of the Pakistani ISI literally in Washington, D.C. the week of the attacks, on the morning of 9/11, having breakfast with who will become the head of the CIA, Porter Goss, and also Senator Graham, not Lindsey, Bob Graham, by the way. And those two will actually head up the initial congressional investigation that had those long-standing redacted pages. Now, what's really interesting about this Pakistani official being in Washington, D.C. on the week of the attacks is that his surrogate, Omar Saeed Sheikh, allegedly wires $100,000 to Atta that week. So, in other words, the week before, Atta gets $100,000. If you believe the 9/11 Commission, which I'm not saying you should, that would be 1/5 of the money it took. And directly for the attacks, the 9/11 Commission came to the conclusion that only $500,000 had been used. Well, 1/5 of that came from the ISI, which is their CIA, which is really something that was revamped into this network post-World War II with us, British intelligence, and during the late 70s, early 80s, we were backing bin Laden through this network with the ISI through the Mujahideen. Right. Yeah. So you already had all these connections with Pakistan. You got this money man in D.C., met with Joe Biden. I've got Joe Biden on camera admitting meeting with him. But he met with Biden not the day of, several days later. Condoleezza Rice met with this person who was the head of the NSA. She got asked about it, in the press corps, got asked about it, completely denied it. Later documentation would show, of course, she met with George Tenet, the head of the CIA, all these things. Right. Then you have Omar Saeed Sheikh, who is, again, the surrogate, but he becomes a key player in the war on terror as at first he gets convicted of the beheading of Daniel Pearl. Really, the first video that we get of these beheadings to ramp up the war, Daniel Pearl, a journalist who was investigating the money behind 9/11. So we have him associated with the first, with this murder. Then you had Benazir Bhutto, before her murder, come on air. And before the Navy SEAL raid of this Pakistani complex, come out and say, as she was running for office, by the way, that Omar Saeed Sheikh, the same spook, had murdered Osama bin Laden. Okay? And then in short term, she is murdered. Now, the really interesting thing about Omar Saeed Sheikh is he's in a British safe house right now. They overturned his conviction, and he's just kind of out there. But he certainly seems to be someone that was highly involved. I think Peter Lance, in his book many, many years ago, named him as a quote-unquote triple agent. But he would be that Pakistani connection other than the Abbottabad connection, other than the money connection, and other than the hospital connection. But that compound was extremely close to a Pakistani military base, was it not, Mike?
Yeah, it's like their version of West Point, right down the street.
Yeah, weird.
And when we flew that helicopter tour, there was a river valley. So we left the airport in Islamabad, and I remember looking out in the press on the helo. We didn't know at the time the significance of Islamabad. We all were given these documents, and I kept them as a souvenir because I thought it was cool. It was one of the few things that has a map. So we're flying over this river valley, and it's very narrow. I mean, Abbottabad isn't a big city. It's a small town near a river. You know, we probably flew within sight of that Pakistani military installation, and probably very close to where Osama bin Laden was. And this is a Cheney move. This guy used to be a White House chief of staff. He's hearing all this stuff. They got him on ice. He wants to go see for himself. USAID puts up the cover story. Oh, yeah, we're running, earthquake relief. Why don't you come and look around? Cheney never did that. And this is 2005. So this is after Hurricane Katrina decimates the Republican Party with, bad publicity.
Well,
so
wait, just because you brought up Katrina, literally on video when they have Cheney surveilling the area and a couple locals come by, they literally say, F you, Mr. Cheney, F you. That's how beloved Dick Cheney was when he was on the ground doing his work. We got to take a quick break, Mike. The book is An Almost Insurmountable Evil, How Obama's Deep State Defiled the Catholic Church and Executed the Wuhan Pandemic. Another hot topic. I promise you, folks, we're going to get into that. But we're going to tail into this a little bit more as well with all these declassifications, because I want people to really think about that. Everything we talked about. If we had this guy, quote unquote, on ice or knew who he was from the beginning, do you get to stay in Afghanistan? Do you even go into Afghanistan in the beginning? Because, hey, he's in Pakistan. You certainly don't get Iraq and the rest of the war on terror that continues to this day. We're going to hit those topics and much more. It's Making Sense of the Madness.
What do a neurosurgeon, a country artist, and a television and radio host have in common? They all saw the writing on the wall. Big banks sharing your financial information with big government. Join them as owners in Old Glory Bank, the pro-America online bank that protects your privacy, security, and liberty. Invest today at own.oldglorybank.com.
And we are back. So, Mike, obviously a ton of implications here.
Yeah.
Now, for me, this is really my bread and butter. This is how I got into this arena 20 plus years ago. Now, 20 years ago this summer will be the release of Loose Change, second edition that went wildfire and Question 9/11 that I was a part of. And there were so many things about bin Laden out there. There were people that were, again, talking about the dialysis treatment. Again, that coincides with what they were apparently doing in Pakistan. There had been numerous reports through the years that he had already been assassinated. I forget what the guy's name was, but you had an individual also write an entire book. It's killing me I can't remember his name because it doesn't even sound like a real name. It's Dalton Fury. Dalton Fury came out and he said that he had bin Laden in the mountains of Afghanistan, located, ready to go. He was told to stand down. All these things are out there. Right. Even at one point after the raid, they put out a document of the list of things that bin Laden had in that compound. And he's got loose change. He's got Webster Tarpley's 9/11 synthetic terror. He's got 13 bloodlines of the Illuminati by Fritz Springenmeyer, if you read that list. What is your opinion after kind of being amongst these people? Because obviously you look back now, and USAID is all over the news, rightfully so.
Right.
Seems to be a huge conduit for these type of intel ops. I'm sure that this wasn't an isolated trip. I mean, a cool trip, but I'm sure you went on maybe dozens of these things throughout your career, throughout the world. What is your 40,000-foot view of bin Laden, that operation, what the intel really was, and what happened when they did finally decide to go into that compound?
You know, I was stunned when I saw those photos on the CIA website. That's when it really shook me. Because that's, you know, they said, oh, that was a big point of contention in the 2004 re-election of George Bush. Kerry was always lambasting the loss that Osama bin Laden got away from the mountains of Tora Bora. And now you got to look back at everything that we've been told about what Osama bin Laden, who he was, what he did, the legend of Osama bin Laden, and doubt everything. I even doubt what it was they found in his compound now. I don't think there's anything that we can really say, yes, that happened and we were told the truth about it. This happened with me. I'm the eyewitness. There's a document. The press was there. And they were just sort of used as like the morality shield or the good news shield. Oh, yeah, we flew over. We're doing a great job there. We're helping the earthquake people. Well, you know, the real dirty story is what they did elsewhere. And that was Pakistan. That was, you know, Afghanistan, Iraq, all those places I went to. And then, you know, this book that I've written, this is about travel I took with Joe Biden to Honduras, to Mexico. And then what I did was I looked into White House visitor logs from that time period. And what I found was there was a Catholic cardinal of the time guy. He's been laicized since because he was a child molester, a predator. His name is Theodore McCarrick. Well, he would go into the Obama-Biden White House regularly and meet with Dennis McDonough, while Dennis McDonough was White House chief of staff. And McCarrick was instrumental in influencing the election of Pope Francis. Then he was Archbishop Bergoglio of Argentina in 2013. And after that, this Pope became a foreign policy tool of the Obama-Biden, their foreign policy program, their administration, to the point where, because I'd been to Honduras, because I'd been to Mexico, they started a program where the Catholic Church, Joe Biden, Dennis McDonough, Cardinal McCarrick, worked cartel drug traffickers and human smugglers into the business with the church, just to bring children across the border from 2014 to 2016 with American taxpayer money. It was called the Alliance for Prosperity. And basically they did a deal with this Honduran president, a guy named Juan Orlando Hernandez. I think we probably talked about him, me and you, in the past. And they set up this Alliance for Prosperity. And this whole thing, they pulled the church into it. The Pope was part of it. It's just almost unfathomable how evil they've been right on our noses. And that's what this book is about.
So let's talk about this for a second. All right. You know, because again, I've been in the quote unquote arena of conspiracy for a while now, obviously, with loose change. So I hear it all. It's the Masons, it's the Illuminati, it's the Vatican. Oh boy, I get the Vatican all the time, and you just don't cover the Black Pope enough, Jason, etc. As somebody who is a traveled individual amongst the highest realms of power, literally as a fly on the wall in many of these cases, right?
Right. I went to the Vatican with Joe Biden in 2016. right after we went to Iraq.
So when you look at that, where does the Vatican sit in the global power structure? Because obviously it does have a ton of influence in Western culture. Certainly, it throws its weight around in policy. And like you're describing, is also used as a tool or a conduit via these NGOs globally and these programs globally for certain agendas.
Right.
Where are they as far as a driving force? Where would you place them in the power play field of the global arena?
Well, I think there has to be an investigation into the CIA intrusion into the Vatican, into the Catholic Church. It goes back decades. The origination of the CIA was out of Rome, and they were working closely with the Vatican through their networks of the Catholic Church is, if you look at it one way, is the world's oldest intelligence operation. It's global. They've got people's dirty secrets at their fingertips when people go to confession. They've got local representation. People are very loyal to their cause. And so the Vatican, if you're the Pope and you're not a good guy, you can do terrible damage. And that's what Francis did. But I think Francis and McCarrick were both CIA operatives. And I talk about that in the book. Pardon me. McCarrick was a guy who, as a cardinal, who was he was sexually abusing seminarians and altar boys, was given the green light to travel around the world by the State Department and distribute money to priests and bishops all around the world, buying influence. That's what the CIA does. And there were always questions of where does he get this money? And the answer was always from the Vatican. Well, it comes from wealthy Catholic donors. Well, I think the wealthy Catholic donors had the initials CIA, and I think he was an operative. Bergoglio in Argentina was a Jesuit priest who early in his career in the 70s was connected to the right-wing dictatorship there that was backed by the CIA. That it comes out. It's kind of well reported that Operation Condor was permeated through South America. And so Bergoglio was part of the right-wing dictator. He wasn't part of it. He did business with them. And that was publicly known. And there's a black mark on his history because of it. Some of the priests that he had under his care were kidnapped by the dictatorship, tortured, and they came out and said they kidnapped us and tortured us because Bergoglio betrayed us. So there's a lot of questions about his alliance with the CIA back in his early days. So was McCarrick. And then those two come together in Rome in 2013, and Bergoglio becomes not only the Pope, but he becomes the morality launderer for the Obama-Biden globalists, Democratic Party, globalists, World Economic Forum people, all that.
So you do think they are highly interconnected in some regards and working as assets and agents for the intelligence apparatus, which, by the way, is pretty murky, everybody. I would just say that, that's why I'm not left, right, Dems, Republicans, conservative, liberals. If they've got you compromised, and by the way, all those people are of a religious nature in some regards, and if they're confessing these things, they might be compromised. Well, then you can just recruit about anybody for these agendas. And Almost Insurmountable Evil is on Amazon.com right now. You can purchase it there. Or check out Mike McCormick's Substack. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back, and we're going to discuss the Wuhan pandemic element of this book. You're not going to want to miss it. More Making Sense of the Madness after this.
I couldn't give anything a higher endorsement.
I would be remiss had I not include Cardio Miracle on my very short list of secrets.
It's the real deal. It's a real product. It's not another supplement.
I'm operating about 6 to 8 hours, and I've noticed that being on this Cardio Miracle has made a huge difference.
Since I started taking Cardio Miracle about 8 months into it, the benefits have been fantastic.
You know, if I get hungry, then I just have a Cardio Miracle.
Not only is it safe, but it's necessary to take Cardio Miracle to stay well.
This let me sleep, it's filling up more energy, more get up and go, and it's all because of what this company does.
For me as a doctor, Cardio Miracle is a staple.
Cardio Miracle to me is hope in a glass.
To try Cardio Miracle for yourself and get a special fan discount, go to the host page right now and click the link for Cardio Miracle.
Now, Mike, the title of this book, I'm reading this thing, and Wuhan pandemic at the very end. Right. Didn't see that one coming. Feels like a bit of a curveball. How does that become integrated into this story involving the Catholic Church? You just mentioned Pope Francis. Seems like he might be on his last legs. At least that's what they're kind of telling us in the news. He's very sick. Wondering if you think he has a successor in mind, somebody who's going to be propped up, etc. But how does Wuhan get involved in this?
Joe Biden. It's simple explanations. Joe Biden was the link to both operations. And so, I don't know if you and I have talked about this, but in the book, I bring out the idea that people have always looked at the last Joe Biden, the last 4 years, Joe Biden's presidency, as he was the puppet of Barack Obama. I think it's the exact opposite. I think when Joe Biden was vice president, he was the puppet master and Obama was the puppet. One thing I do I didn't write about this in the book, this came out later in my Substack, but there was a guy who came to Washington in June of 2008 named Larry Sinclair. And he made some pretty dramatic accusations against Barack Obama that he had smoked crack with him and had gay sex with him in Chicago. He did a press conference at the National Press Club in downtown D.C., was arrested there. Who arrested him? Beau Biden. Took him to Delaware on a warrant, held him under lock and key until the middle of August, and then dropped all the charges. In the meantime, they did a bit of an investigation into this guy and his background. Who becomes the vice president in the interim period? Joe Biden. So by the time this guy Sinclair is out of jail by Beau Biden, Joe Biden and Barack Obama are off and running, winning the next election in a landslide. So that's when I think it shifted to a Joe Biden manipulated White House. And so the Wuhan pandemic, in 2014, they started planning this. First of all, they started planning this huge influx of illegal immigrants to the United States through this Alliance for Prosperity. And then what happened? President Trump got elected in 2016. He stood right in front of that. That whole operation they had set up stopped. And so they had to connive their way into ideas of how to get rid of Trump. The Wuhan pandemic was one of them. One of the things I talk about in the book that links Biden's to the Wuhan pandemic is a company called Metabiota. Hunter Biden was a big investor in Metabiota starting in December of 2013. And that investment grew exponentially as Joe Biden went to Ukraine, and Metabiota started getting contracts to do biolab work in Ukraine and in the Republic of Georgia, next door to Ukraine. And so all of a sudden, Joe Biden's, it was like a kickback scheme run at the same time as Burisma, this Metabiota. It grew and grew. By December of 2014, there is an agreement out of the Obama administration that they're going to have infectious disease research in China. There's a $200 million award called Predict 2, a $200 million program called Predict 2 that's funded through USAID that paid Fauci and EcoHealth Alliance to do research in infectious diseases and gather infectious diseases around the world. And they did this in the wake of the Ebola crisis. And in the book, I think the Ebola crisis was a warm-up for the Wuhan pandemic. And so what happened was that was in 2014, that was a 5-year funding cycle. It ended in September of 2019. And Trump was in there and he says, no, we're not going to fund any more of this virus research stuff. We're done funding this stuff. And what happened? Wuhan virus started coming out actually in the fall of 2019.
So when we are talking about, I mean, obviously this is a long span. You know, we have had the discussion before of Biden kind of being this quintessential politician and somebody who is very involved in making deals, maybe even kickbacks. Let's not forget, he's a senator in Delaware, where so many, and a lot of people don't get this, so many shell companies are set up not only for big business purposes and taxation purposes, but now that we're talking USAID, geez, I just wonder how many are filed there as well for those same purposes. An Intel conduit, etc. Can you kind of speak to that? Because we haven't talked since the pre-pardons either. There's a lot of people out there, in my opinion, that have a hopium train that these pre-pardons don't cover state investigations, etc. But they're just so damn unprecedented in the first place that not only were they done, they were put out in mass, they have specific dates, and it kind of speaks to this class of people that despite how guilty, not only in the court of public opinion, but by the openly available public evidence, are still beyond the law. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, so the Metabiota investment by Hunter Biden and his Rosemont Seneca Technology Partners Group begins in December of 2013. He was only pardoned till January of 2014. So that aspect of his criminal investigation could be had into his activities then. He certainly was involved with other crimes before then. That was well documented by the Marco Polo Group in their report on the Biden laptop. But also what was involved in Metabiota, the people who were part of the cover-up were the Vindman brothers and Jake Sullivan. I talk about that in that book. That book. I always get that mixed up. So in the case to impeach and imprison Joe Biden, Jake Sullivan is clearly in line for an investigation in this current White House, Justice Department, FBI. And so I think he's going to be investigated and the Vindmans are going to be investigated. Alexander Vindman was the area officer for Ukraine in 2014 when Hunter Biden's investment partner, Devin Archer, went to the embassy of the American embassy in Ukraine and talked about investing and getting money for their investments from USAID and Defense Threat Reduction Agency was one of their funders. That puts Vindman at least on the at least in the notification of, hey, somebody's coming to talk about bio labs that are funded by Defense Threat Reduction Agency. You should be at this meeting. So they've got to investigate that. I think that's what he was covering up when he ran to the and made the sort of the connection that the beautiful phone call that Trump did with Zelensky in 2019 was, an impeachable offense. It wasn't. It was him covering up.
So now that we do have this new administration forming, becoming more and more solidified with Kash Patel in there, just announced that Bongino is going to be the deputy director of the FBI. Again, I don't love the hopium. I've been extremely skeptical in the past that there's going to be any criminal accountability anywhere. This is stacking up to maybe get some criminal accountability. I know that you spoke about in the past being interviewed in certain arenas where you can let a little bit more information out there in these criminal investigations. Do you suspect that you will be called upon for that? And if not, do you think that this administration is going to go after meaningful criminal accountability on some of these people?
You're going to use your hopium word. I hope so. I don't have much confidence in what Congress is going to do. They're just going to rubber stamp what just as they've done in the past, just sort of kind of give us a very minimal reporting of what's actually happened, unless it's like something that happened 30 years ago. So we'll see what happens. They certainly could put these people in jail. And, the extent, so I live in the DC area, the extent to which people are melting down around here is pretty significant. And so that is a big part of it. And there's a lot of shock and awe that is permeating now the culture here in Washington that's been impermeable. It's always been Fortress DC, really. And suddenly they're on their back heels, and they're not quite in full retreat, but they're close to it. So once you start getting convictions, yeah, you'll see it. I think you're going to see some lower level people. I think the Vindmans are going to face the music. We'll see if Jake Sullivan does. His wife is a congresswoman. If they want to do some damage to the Democratic brand in the midterm elections, that's a way to do it. Do these investigations. And frankly, I think J.D. Vance can really elevate his stature by doing an investigation for the Catholic Church, for Catholics. I'm a Catholic. I consider myself a thin ice Catholic. I mean, I go into the Catholic Church, I'm on thin ice with what I think and do and say. I've written this book. There's a lot of Catholics who think I'm, out there with it. But I think that as a Catholic, I believe in the church, and I think it needs to be cleansed. And I think he's a guy who could do it. And that would be a significant achievement, to get the CIA and the intelligence community out of the Catholic Church, out of all faith organizations. I'm not sure where else they go, but my background is in what I've seen with McCarrick. But let's get to some investigations that really have some teeth.
Mike, let everybody know where they can get the book and support your work.
The book is on Amazon, and Almost Insurmountable Evil. And my Substack is Midnight in the Laptop of Good and Evil. Please follow me on X or Substack at Joe Unauthorized, And, it's this isn't time where the independent media like me and you are really starting to hit it, right? I mean, the mainstream media is on their back heels along with everybody else in DC.
As they should be. Again, you're seeing a lot of old schoolers get fired. I don't know if they're going to be swallowed up by any new media. See you, Lester Holt. Arrivederci, Joy Reid. I can only hope there's another baker's dozen behind that. Always a pleasure, Mike. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we've got Josh Hewlett. You're not going to want to miss it. Final segment of Making Sense of the Madness after this.
Attention American business owners. Big or small, your company deserves to be seen, and Patriot TV is here to help. We're proud to support American-owned businesses by offering a free listing of your company on Patriot TV Store. That's right, no cost, just visibility to millions of loyal viewers who want to support American businesses like yours. Whether you run a small business or a nationwide company, this is your chance to reach a dedicated audience on Patriot TV Store, on major smart TVs like Samsung, LG, Sony, TCL, Roku, also on Apple, Android, Amazon, Fire Stick, YouTube, Facebook, Rumble, Truth Social, X, and of course, the Patriot TV Store app and website. It's our way of giving back to the community and helping American businesses thrive. Let's work together to build a stronger America. Don't miss out on this incredible opportunity. Get your free business listing today. Contact us at info@patriot.tv.
I couldn't give anything a higher endorsement.
I would be remiss had I not include Cardio Miracle on my very short list of secrets.
It's the real deal. It's a real product. It's not another supplement.
I'm operating about 6 to 8 hours, and I've noticed that being on this Cardio Miracle has made a huge difference.
Since I started taking Cardio Miracle, about 8 months into it, the benefits have been fantastic.
You know, if I get hungry, then I just have a Cardio Miracle.
Not only is it safe, but it's necessary to take Cardio Miracle to stay well.
This let me sleep. It's filling up more energy, more get up and go. And it's all because of what this company does.
For me as a doctor, Cardio Miracle is a staple.
Cardio Miracle to me is hope in a glass.
To try Cardio Miracle for yourself and get a special fan discount, go to the host page right now and click the link for Cardio Miracle.
And we are back. We are now joined by Josh Hewlett of Cardio Miracle. You can go check out my page over on patriot.tv to check out Cardio Miracle for yourself. Now, I recently tried this product, and I am 45 years young. For me, I actually started taking the nitric oxide horse pills after the creatine craze. When they first came out, I was 20 years old. I remember they were big horse pills like this. And by the way, sometimes they still are kind of that, but they're much more concentrated form. There was a loading phase. I would take it on top of creatine sometimes with other supplementation. But what I noticed most about it is it worked. It 100% worked. I was never in better shape in my life. Later on, there would be products out there that I would take. I would say the last big name product I took as working out and not just a supplementation, because it has now become a very popular supplement. I'm glad to see that. Was BSN and the No Explode brand. And when I tasted this, I hate doing pitches. I'm not that guy. I only talk about things I actually use. Not only did it taste a lot like the BSN, but I had that almost immediate, and I don't usually get this from the pills. You know, I take big name ones like Jacked XT, you know, the stuff with 4 or 5-star reviews, all that stuff that I had with Cardio Miracle. And the nice thing is, yes, it does taste good. I usually put it with some unsweetened tea, squeeze a lemon in there. You got yourself a cherry Arnold Palmer. It's delicious. But certainly if you're just doing what you do with a water bottle, and especially working out, have another half-gallon jug with you because you're going to need it. This is the real deal, my man. And I know I've ranted for a couple minutes, but at the same time, I want people to understand this is something that, you know, slowly has gone into the mainstream, but with that come a lot of hucksters, a lot of synthetics, a lot of watered-down brands that you get at Walmart. You're not going to see the right results. So how did you get into this? And what is in this formula that makes it so special?
Oh man, I love it, man. And thank you so much for the pitch and all that. Love it. Love that you're loving it. So, you know, I actually was always a big guy. It was football's college scholarship in 2002. My kids say, was it in the 1900s you went to college, Dad? So it was actually 2002. And then I got a powerlifting scholarship, and I was taking creatine that was putting water in my muscles. And then when I introduced nitric oxide into my, you know, self, it was like my dad was trying to actually help my heart because I had a neurological issue in 2009. And so I didn't even take any in college. I didn't try it. I just jumped on the creatine bandwagon. But I was taking another product with another company that introduced me to nitric oxide therapy, and it really, really helped me. But I had to take a scoop an hour of every day in order to keep the nitric oxide in my system. And so my dad walked away from a very lucrative business, and he created Cardio Miracle so that you can just take 2 servings a day of this and you will be good for 24 hours a day with nitric oxide flowing through your blood all day. And that the reason for that is because of our 58 whole and organic fruits and vegetables that is in the product, and it keeps nitric oxide fresh in your system all day long, which is remarkable. It doesn't give you the same pump or the same, your veins pumping, protruding out of your system as a No Explode does, but a No Explode or those other products that are in GNC or Walmart, they have been proven to last nitric oxide about 7 minutes in your system, and Cardio Miracle lasts nitric oxide for 24 hours a day. And we like to do it more of like a health benefit, cardiovascular, kind of like a back end recovery, so that when you go in and you work out, that you're able to go in and do it every day, go do it again. And so it's been an incredible journey for me, and so grateful for my dad that he never spares any expense, and he makes sure that we have the best product on the market today.
Now, one of the other aspects of this is that when you do take a scoop of this with 16 or 24 ounces of liquid, it absolutely curbs your appetite. I know there's a huge craze now with injectables and semi-glutides and all these other things. That's certainly not the direction that I want to go in. I want something that is going to be more natural. And again, now this product has kind of been in the consumer arena almost 30 years, not quite there. With this other supplementation inside, what are some of the other things that you think pair well with this? Obviously, exercise, healthy eating, etc. But if you are taking this twice a day, what kind of supplements and what kind of meal plan do you suggest for people?
So after college, I decided I want to be a big guy. I love food, I got into the world of strongman. So yeah, I was flipping telephone poles, I was lifting cars, and I was competing here locally in Utah, and it was fun for a while. And I got up to almost 500 pounds. And then after I hurt my back, I decided I needed to take my health into my own hands. And I began intermittent fasting and doing kind of a OMAD, which is 1 meal a day. And I decided to go with the keto lifestyle. So I love meat. I love, healthy fats. And what this does is it gives me my fruits and vegetables. And then with, eating meats and fat, I was actually able to drop 180 pounds just by intermittent fasting and walking and just functional training, I guess. And now that I want to get even further, like I'm sitting around 300, 315, and I want to get down to 250 is my goal. And this always at the cornerstone. But now that I'm doing a lot heavier training, I'm back in the gym, I lift heavy. I of course do the keto diet still, because I love meat. And so I do that, but everyone's different. So right now I'm trying to consume between 250 and 300 grams of protein a day. And that has been working for me so far. So it's kind of whatever your diet plan is, whatever you're trying to accomplish, this is a way to kind of jumpstart you. And here's the exciting part is it's so low in calories that it will not break your fast when you're drinking it. So I would fast for 20 hours a day, and then I'd eat for 4, and I just, wouldn't break my fast. So I could do that intermittent fasting however long you want to do it, and you're satiated because it's sweetened with monk fruit and organic stevia. So all 100% from the earth. It's raw ingredients, and we're never gonna skimp on that. We've got too much of a commitment to making sure that the products are 100% efficacy and that they hold their true value.
And one of the other aspects of nitric oxide is the libido thing. A lot of people don't understand that nitric oxide is very much the active ingredient in things like Viagra, Cialis, etc. Obviously, it's a more concentrated form with those things, but you definitely see a vast difference, especially if you haven't haven't taken this before, you are in your 40s or 50s and start taking it, I guarantee there's going to be a change. We got about 2 minutes left in the broadcast. Can you speak to that aspect of it and maybe give some other suggestions on why people should get involved in Cardio Miracle?
Definitely, yeah. With the aspect of libido, with the aspect of ED, I mean, we're seeing all ads every day for Blue Chew and these Cialis, all these, these to help people, these little blue pills. What's exciting is that Cardio Miracle with the nitric oxide benefit. See, nitric oxide is not an ingredient. It's a gas that's created through other ingredients and foods. And so what's exciting is that I do have baby boomers and people in their 40s, whatnot, call me all the time and say, dude, I'm like ready to go all the time. And so it's like reignited their love life, and it's really helped their marriages, and it's really incredible. So the point of this helping with libido is it's not going to harm your heart. Like when people take those other blue pills, they feel a little atrophy, or they feel a little something in their heart that they're nervous about. And so with this, it's going to help strengthen your heart so you can live a longer life. And what's exciting for us is our goal is to literally save the hearts of mankind. And we're doing that one heart at a time. And we call Cardio Miracle the complete nitric oxide solution, and a spark of life in the cell is what nitric oxide has been called by the Cleveland Clinic. So we're really excited to be a part of it, and really excited to be a part of that. We can come and speak to patriots all over the world and help them to live a long, better life.
Patriot.tv/Bermas is where you're going to find it. Go check it out, Cardio Miracle. Thank you so much, Josh, and thank you guys for watching this show 5 days a week where the truth lives. It's Patriot.tv. Remember, to this guy, it is not about left or right. It is always about right and wrong. I love you guys, and we will see you on the flip side.